Hi there, it's Frank Klesitz, the CEO of Viral Marketing, and welcome to our next database marketing hangout, where we talk all things about how to grow your business by better working your database with education-based video marketing. Position yourself as the expert and to stay in touch with your number one business asset, which is your database, the list of relationships that you have with all of your customers, past clients, prospects, whoever it may be, in your CRM system, in your email, in your lead generation system, whatever it is. We got to have a plan to stay in touch with those people, stay top of mind, position yourself as an expert. And here at Viral Marketing, we do it by interviewing you on a webcam like this to create 2 educational videos a month. And you can learn more about the marketing plan that Matt follows and all of our other clients follow on our website, getviral.com. There's a free video marketing plan right there at the very top. Download that, and it gets about 20 pages, and it goes through exactly how to reconnect with that database and how to communicate with it to grow your business. But that's not really why we're having this hangout today. That's all you're going to hear about viral marketing. These hangouts are completely educational. I'll be very clear about that. All right. But today we have a very special topic, and we're going to talk about accounting, which is so exciting, isn't it? So exciting. But it's probably
everybody just dropped off the call.
Yeah, everyone dropped off. But look, accounting is the most overlooked topic in the entire space. I've been to masterminds, I've been to events, I've been to conferences, and nobody talks about this stuff. But it's the language of business. Warren Buffett says it's the language of business, understanding your numbers and what you can afford to spend on commission splits, what you can afford to spend on marketing, what can you afford to spend on this, that, to still be able to pay yourself a salary and have a healthy net profit left over for yourself every single month. And making sure that your numbers as you're growing don't get out of whack where you have a financial crisis with yourself. Your own personal 2008, if it will be. Okay. So I invited Matt Fetick on here. He is a top agent up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Say hi, Matt.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
All right. So he's a top agent. His team will do over $2 million a year in gross commission income. So $2 million of revenue, GCI. And he nets 40% of that to the bottom line. Is that correct, Matt?
That's the goal.
That's the goal. All right.
That's the goal.
So that's the target. And what we're going to talk about today is, as he was growing his business, what are the numbers and what are the ratios to understand how much can you afford to spend on marketing? How much can you afford to pay people? And it's all a percentage of revenue. So we're going to have an exciting hangout today. Get excited with me. We're going to talk about budgets. We're going to talk about accounting. We're going to talk about the language of business that you need to know. So one, if you can afford viral marketing, if it makes sense. That's kind of the purpose here. But on a much wider scope, just better understanding your numbers where you're supposed to be for a healthy business. That's why I brought Matt on. So Matt, thank you so much for being on the hangout today, bud.
You're welcome. If anybody's still out there after we said that it was going to be about numbers and accounting, we're in really great shape. But I think the best thing that we're going to do, Frank, today is we're going to talk about how the numbers will tell a story, one about their business, both as it is today and what it could be tomorrow. I think one of the things that I see on Facebook a lot is agents asking questions. What can I pay my buyer's agent? What can I pay my listing agent? What should I pay an admin? And my response is always, I don't know. We have to look at your numbers because it's all based on your value proposition. And so if we work backwards and we say the GCI is going to be X and I want to net Y, the money left over is what you can spend. And so that's how you work backwards to figure out exactly what you can pay a buyer's agent or a listing specialist or an admin or a runner. So all the answers to most of your decisions, not the who, but the process will always be in your numbers.
Okay. So we are going to start in this discussion today, assuming no one's ever looked at a profit and loss statement. No one's ever looked at a balance sheet. And we're going to start from the very beginning. So let's distinguish first the difference between gross and net. Tell me the difference.
Yeah. So gross is everything that you've ever made. For the gross commission income, I like to say it's what the consumer paid at closing. So it's the amount of money that was paid at closing on the HUD. That's the gross amount. So gross is all the dollars combined. Net is the amount of money left over after you spend all the expenses that it took you to make the gross. So the gross is what you made. The expenses and another segment we call cost of sale is the money that it cost you to make the money. And then what's left over is the net.
Got it. Okay. So when somebody gets into business, and let's just kind of start maybe our discussion of numbers of the journey of starting off on your very own where you have nothing and you're starting from scratch, on your way up to what they call the millionaire real estate agent, where theoretically it's possible to net $1 million in real estate if you're doing $2.4 million a year in gross commission income. You should be able to net $1 million for yourself based upon the book by Gary Keller, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So when someone's just starting off, how should they budget? They get their first commission check, let's say it's $10,000. Great day. They double-ended a deal. You get a $10,000 commission check. How much do you pay yourself? Where should the money go? How do you think about that $10,000? Because it's certainly not all yours.
No, and I think everyone thinks, and I call that the troubled flow of money, and that's when agents take all the money that they make and they put it into their personal bank account and they spend as if all 10,000 was theirs, and that really is the troubled flow of money. The smart flow of money really takes into consideration what you need to operate your business from, number one, and number two, less exciting, the tax consequences. And making sure that you plan ahead for taxes and you budgeted the money and save the money for taxes. But let's just back up for 1 second. When we talk about the gross, so I want to distinguish the difference between the commission check that the broker hands you and the commission that was paid by the consumer. See, most of us look at the commission check that our broker gives us as our income. Well, that is your income. But in reality, I think the GCI, the entire commission, is your income. And we really, if we're smart, we're tracking what it costs us to be in business with our broker. That's called the cost of sale. And so I'm not talking about what you pay taxes on. I'm talking about tracking the cost of sale, because you should know what it is, what it costs you to be in business with your broker. So let's assume the consumer paid $10,000 at closing. So you get $10,000 paid on the HUD, and then it goes to your broker. Your broker gives you a check for $7,000, and therefore they held $3,000. You want to track your income as 10. You want to track your cost of sale as 3,000. And now that 7,000 number is actually what we call gross profit. It's the gross profit number, which is the number that you're really depositing into your bank account. So let's track cost of sale, because I think people don't realize, see, it's really your business. It's the agent's business. It's not the broker's business. It's the agent's business. And the agent should know what their real costs of being in business with their broker. There's a lot of different models out there. I happen to be with Keller Williams, and the company's been fantastic for me and for my career. But we want to encourage everyone to track your cost of sale. In other words, what you pay your broker. So cost of sale would include this, Frank. It's going to include what you pay to your company. So your company commission, what you pay if you pay any type of royalty fees to a larger national franchise. It includes any team member splits, what you pay a buyer's agent or a listing agent. It's going to include any outbound referral fees. So it's the cost of that transaction. And so we want to encourage everybody to track the cost of sale. And that way at the end of the year, man, I generated X amount of money as my GCI, my gross commission income, and my gross profit, which is the money that I had the ability to control what I spent my expenses on, was X. And now I know what it cost me to be in business with that broker. And I think that's the first place to start.
Got it. So here's what I did for everybody. And you can zoom in and take a look at this and make sure I got this right here, Matt. This is our budget, and we're going to work our way down this page. And obviously, when we get to the marketing section, we'll talk about viral marketing, the results of viral marketing, all that stuff. But I want to see how we're going to end up with the marketing number and end up with how much you can afford to spend on marketing. So at the very top here, we have 100% for the budget, right?
Yeah.
Is this coming through on your end correctly, left to right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody backwards. All right. So you have revenue is 100%, and then you have your line items down below is what you pay your broker. Yeah. Whatever splits, whether they're graduated splits or whatever the splits are to your listing agents, whatever the splits are, they're graduated or tiered to your buyer's agent, you have referral fees and royalties. That goes right off the top of that $10,000 check that we're going to use as our example today. And what's left after all that comes off, which is called the cost of sale, is your gross profits, the money left over after you pay all those people to cover your salaries and your overhead and your marketing expenses and all those other things, and you're left with your net profit. So here's the question. As a percentage of revenue, Matt, how much money should be spent here?
30%.
30%.
Yeah.
And in accounting,
GCI could go to cost of sale.
Got it. So in accounting, everyone, do you see how I put parentheses around them? In the accounting world, if there's parentheses around something, that means a negative. So it means it's subtracting. So you see me put parentheses around something, that's a negative, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a parentheses around 30% down below that. Now, 30% seems low. I hear people pay their buyer's agents 50-50.
Yeah.
I heard they pay, that's what the broker fees and the commission split. So if it's only 30%, so some agent's going to come work for you only for a 30% spent split or less than that. Can you explain how much you should be paying your agents if you're running your team to be able to keep 60% of the money left over yourself after you pay them?
Yeah. So keep in mind that when these numbers come from Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So it's designed around the Keller Williams model. So they may not work in all brokerages. And the reason is because in our franchise model, in our market center model, your company commission dollars and your royalty dollars cap. So at some point you're paying zero to the broker and you're paying zero royalty fees. So when that happens, you have more money left over to pay your team members a higher split. So let's assume on January 1st, that's the beginning of your fiscal year with your company. You're going to be out of whack for a while. You're going to be more than 30% in order to get moving. However, the needle will bring back up when you're no longer paying anything to your broker and you've got that money left over to go towards team members. So you would struggle to hit a 30% cost of sale in a brokerage model that didn't have a capping commission structure. So it really only works if your commissions to your broker are capped at a certain dollar volume. If they are uncapped and they just go on forever, some slice of the pie, it'll be hard to hit the 30% number.
Makes complete sense. So let's talk about the listing and buyer agent splits that work for your team. How does that structure?
Yeah, so we just work backwards. And so people will say, Matt, should I pay a buyer's agent 50%? Should I pay him 40%? Should I pay him 20%? I think what you have to, before you ask that question, you've got to look at your fixed costs, which we're going to get to in a minute. But the issue for me is, are you handing out appointments? Are you handing out leads? What is your support system like? So for example, on my team, we have a transaction coordinator who is a licensed agent who takes every deal from contract to close. So they're negotiating inspections, they're negotiating repairs, they're moving the ball down the field after it goes under contract. So because I'm paying that salary and that frees the agent up more to sell more homes, because that's what's happening, my cost, I have less money available to pay the agent, but they're going to make it up in volume, right? So we look at it and say, in my business model, somewhere between 35 and 40% can be paid to a buyer's agent because of what I'm paying on the other pieces. So not only do I pay a transaction coordinator, but when you look at we have inside sales agents that set appointments for our buyer's agents. We have different IDX platforms where we're bringing in a lot of leads. So we're setting more often, at least 60% of the appointments that one of our buyer's agents go on is an appointment set, not just a lead that they had to turn. So because I'm handing out an appointment, go meet John Smith at this home at this time, or they're coming into the office for a buyer consultation, or whatever we've done. Because I'm doing that piece, I've got to recoup that money. So their splits have to come down to match the level of service that I'm bringing to the table. So when if an agent would call me and say, Matt, tell me, how do I figure out what to pay a buyer's agent? I'm going to say there is no flat percent. You have to work backwards and say, my costs are X amount for my IDX platform. This is what I'm investing in all my marketing dollars. Therefore, I had this much left over. But because of the amount of appointments I can set for you, you're going to sell
more money.
4 to 6 homes instead of 1 to 3 homes based on that. So it all comes together. That's why it's all tied together. That's why we got to start at the top and get the foundation right.
Well, let me ask you this. You said 35 to 40% you pay the buyer agent, but you can only spend 30% of cost of sale. How does that work?
Well, because once it gets capped out, right, and you're doing volume and you're not paying anything to the brokerage, there's money left over.
Got it.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Which is specific to Keller Williams.
That's why I said, yeah. So these percentage and numbers are based off the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which Gary wrote, but it only works in a brokerage model that's similar to our brokerage model, which has capping commissions. So let me give you an example. If you looked at my team this year, we're going to do over $2 million in GCI total, but our total cap dollars into the office combined are only about $70,000. Right, so that money in the cost of sale goes away, which frees up more money to pay team members.
Got it. What about listing agents? What do you pay a listing agent if you literally just send them into listing appointment, they sign the contract, and it goes over to your team?
Yeah,
maximum service.
15 to 20% is about what fits. And if people say, "Gosh, who's going to work for you for 15 to 20%?" Well, our listing agents can take between 15 and 20 listings a month. Now I've only had one listing agent until this year. I replaced myself about 18 months ago with somebody else. And so now we added a second listing agent about 90 days ago, and somebody just before that. But so our numbers are lagging and just starting to catch up. But my expectation is that somebody's going to do 15 to 20 listings per month, because we have a listing coordinator that takes it from the time the listing contract is signed. We have a runner who goes out and measures the house, takes photographs, puts up the sign. So all those things are happening, right? We leverage all of our marketing, like to Viral and to other companies out there. So the listing agent's job is to go take a listing, bring it in, and negotiate an offer. Everything else is handled so they can get the volume that they need to do.
Got it.
So you just work backwards.
So let's take a look at this again, everybody. Here's the budget. 100%, so the $10,000 that's on the HUD statement goes to you. And then after that, you factor in, here's what I paid the broker. And that which goes down over time. It depends upon how your brokerage works. Hopefully it's capped.
Yes.
Here's what you pay the listing agent. Here's what you pay the buyer's agent. And then whatever the referrals are, hopefully not paying referral fees more than 30% to somebody.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Which leaves you with 70% of your money. So our 10,000 is now 7,000.
That's right.
All right. Which, by the way, this could also be 100,000 or 200,000. The numbers get bigger, but the percentages stay the same. That's right. The key takeaway here.
Well, and that's what makes real estate sales such a lucrative business with a high margin. In other words, a high net profit, because whether we take as the listing commissions go up, our fixed costs stay down. They're the same, right? So I pay a listing coordinator regardless of whether it's a $25,000 listing or a $2 million listing. My fixed hourly costs, my sign costs, those are all fixed things that don't go up, but the commissions do.
Got it. So we have our gross, then we have our cost of sale.
Yep.
Now we have this 70%, which a fraction of that now is not all ours. We have to pay salaries that people work for us. The IRS is going to say you have to pay your own self a salary for doing your job, and you should, because that's you're in the role, you're not out of a role.
Yeah.
Then you have overhead and expenses. What percentage of revenue should you budget for the next tier after cost of sale off that 70%?
So the next tier would be called operating expenses. This would not include taxes, so this is before taxes. And we're going to recommend 30% total of the GCI into your operating expenses.
Okay. So we're going to operating expenses down. Hope everyone's excited learning all of this, because this is seriously important. Because we could talk about all these marketing strategies all day long. We could talk about building your database and sending the videos out and making the money, but there's nothing left at the end of the day. Or you're taking too much work, it's all for nothing. All right? Unless you're a charity and you just like people selling homes for free, which I don't think too many people are. Okay?
Yes.
So operating expenses, 30%. Now let's break down that 30%. Most expensive part of that 30%, let's go into that 30%. Where do we spend it?
Certainly, generally the highest amount is always going to be in salaries. That's your fixed cost. When you really start hiring administrative professionals, runners, in-house marketing people, if you have salaried listing agents, which is, again, if we're going off of the model that we're talking about, which is the millionaire real estate agent model, the model is a salary plus bonus or plus commission for listing agents. So the salary section.
That listing agent that's 15 to 20% is also getting a base.
Yes.
How much?
Yeah, it would depend. I'm going to say somewhere probably between 40 and 60,000 a year. And the reason it's that way is because they can take a huge volume of business if they're really leveraged with a lot of admin. I mean, at my peak when I was the listing agent, I had over 100 active listings at one time, right? So you can really leverage that out at a high level. And so what we want the last job that we want agents to give up as they're building their sales business is the listing side, because it's so highly leverageable, right? I could probably have 3 full-time admin and take listings, and I could probably do 200 sales a year and have a very calm, easy, steady life, because it's so leverageable to the admin side. So if you get your admin license so they can help negotiate inspections or repairs, so they can answer, quick questions from co-op agents or things like that, and all you're doing is focusing on bringing in the listing leads, getting them under contract and making calls, you could have a fantastic life, highly leveraged that way.
So my question is, you recommend a base salary out of the salaries for the listing agent because you're paying them 15, 20%.
Yes.
What about a base salary for the buyer agent? No, because your split's higher? But you could?
No, you certainly could. And so I actually happen to do that on my team, Frank. And the reason we do that was because we were trying to get career agents to join my sales team. And I wanted to offer up things like group health insurance, a 401k. And so it allowed me to give an edge to get some high quality people that just wanted the health insurance things, and we wanted life to be a little bit easier. So I think you can make that happen. So you're going to have to make it up by reducing your cost of sale or your splits in order to make the whole thing work. But I think there's an opportunity there. But the model, if we were talking about the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent model, the reason, again, that the salaried piece is in there for the listing agent is because when you give up that role to your first listing specialist, you're probably giving up a fairly good database. And we're expecting that 50 to 75% are almost come list me appointments from past clients, right? You've been an agent for 10 years. You've built up this really nice database. You're staying in touch through viral, right? And so you've made this great connection with people. And now people are calling up and just saying, hey, I'm selling my house now. And now you can basically send an administrative professional out because you know they're going to get the listing. These are loyal fans. So you can pay a base and you can pay less commission because it's less sales and it's really more service oriented.
Yeah.
And so that's why we do it.
There's less demand generation. The more demand generation you're going to pay for that person. But if you're just a waiter, then it's less. Right?
For sure.
So we have a salary budget. In the salaries, we have this listing agent. We have the buyer agent. If we're going to do that, we have the listing and transaction person. Do you here's a key question, because we're going to move on to the marketing budget then, which is in this. We're talking about just the salary line item. I don't think we shared what the salary line item inside that 30%. How much of that 30% should be dedicated to salaries? What's the percentage there?
So the percentage would be somewhere between 11 and 12%.
Okay, so I'll put 12%.
Okay.
So inside that 12%, we're just talking salaries now. Let me pull this up again because I know we can sometimes get lost. Zooming in. There we go.
Yeah.
So we're talking inside that 30%. We're talking that 30% of operating expenses after we pay all these people up here. We're in that 12%, and we're talking about what are the salaries inside this 30. Okay.
That's right.
So we have listing buyer, listing transaction coordinator, admin. Anyone else? Do you put your ISAs in there, or is that marketing?
Yeah. So we put their base salary in salaries and their commissions based on closed deals as cost of sale.
Okay. So your ISAs that are outbound or inbound that are setting the appointments, their salaries are in that 12.5% salaries. And then any commissions they're earning would be another line item on the cost of sale at the very top.
Yeah. Although our salary budget model is a little bit higher because of that. And so what we did is we reduced our lead generation budget down because we're spending less on farming and direct mail and more on people to make the calls. So we're sending less direct postcards. So we said, okay, let's just adjust this lead gen down from 10% to 8%. And we'll take that money and apply it to salary.
Yeah. Got it. All right, everybody. Hang in there with us. This is good stuff.
Is everybody dropping off the call, Frank? I haven't seen
I'm sure they will. The ones that want to run real businesses and make a profit are still listening. That's the key.
Good.
Okay? All right, so listing agent, buyer agent, listing transaction, OSAs, outbound, inbound ISAs, and anybody else goes in salaries 12%. Got it.
So just keep in mind, for people look at the numbers. These percentages only work when you're doing $2.5 million in volume, right? Or I'm sorry, in commissions. At lower levels, the percentages won't work for you exactly, because if you looked at it and you said if we had 2.5 million and you multiplied that by 11%, right, which is what you could take, that gives you $275,000. And you go, gosh, that's not a lot of money. But at that size, you probably have 3 admin, so there's enough money in there for that. So you have to look at it. But if you at the lower GCI level, the 11% number is not going to work. So this all has to scale correctly.
Good. And I know there's like a rolling where you're at. Is that in the back of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book of what the percentage should be if your GCI is this and this and this and so on and so forth?
That's right.
Got it. Okay. So let's keep going here. So after salaries, and we also have to pay ourselves too. We have our own salary.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about that, if people are taking salaries or not?
Yeah, it's there's no doubt in my mind if you're building a real estate sales business, and I hope you notice today I'm really trying to use the word sales business and not building a team, right? From in my perspective, becoming a team is I'm sorry, building a team is what you become when you hire the right people. But I want to talk about building a sales business because it's truly a business. And I think a lot of agents start out like, I want to build a team. I'm going to have the team of the best buyers agents and the best listing agents. Well, that's all well and good, but let's talk about net profits, right? Let's talk about business, and let's talk about building a sales business, and then let's look at becoming teams along the way. And so when we go back and look at these numbers, and we go back and say, when we look at these sales, the expenses here, we just want you to hold a tight line and hold the money accountable in there. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense. This is probably one of those hangouts where you need lots of charts to explain things, but I totally get it, man. It makes complete sense to me.
Good.
All right, let's move on. We're now in that 30%. We've taken 12% out for salaries. Now we're going to move on to marketing. How much do we budget for marketing within that 30%, Matt?
So 10% is the recommendation, that you spend 10% on marketing, lead generation, whatever you want to call it, but lead generation, marketing. The reason we like to use the term lead generation instead of just marketing is because we want you to tie it to a return on your investment, right? So we don't want to just think, I've got X amount of dollars to spend on marketing, I'm just going to market. We want you to call it lead generation, and we want to say, how many leads are you generating from that money that you're spending? Like, I want to be sure that you're generating leads off of it. So I prefer to use, personally, I would prefer that we use the term lead generation instead of marketing.
All right, we will call it the lead generation category.
Yeah.
But you're right. All right, so you're doing about $2 million a year, and roughly a month. That's about $160,000 a month in sales, right?
Yeah.
Which would give you about $16,000 a month of marketing.
Yep.
Is that correct? More or less 10%.
Yeah.
So you have a $16,000 a month marketing budget, and obviously it's scaled up as your business grew. Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you just share with us, because people are always interested, what do you spend your marketing on? Where does that 16 grand go? I mean, actually give me those sources.
So we allocated some of those dollars to our inside sales team, and so we've moved them up to salaries, but we robbed them out of lead generation. Let me tell you, Frank, there's nothing that can replace boots on the ground, people on the phones, right? When you cast a big net through blanket marketing, you're hoping for a return. When I put somebody on the phone, I can hold them accountable for the number of appointments they set. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in holding that accountable. When we invest in other tools, such as, and I know you don't like, you said in the beginning this wasn't going to be all about viral today, and but we are a customer, right? And so when I look at viral and I invest that money, I'm looking and saying, how many opens am I going to get for the emails that are going out? So that's like, what's my return on there? How many leads, how many listings can I tie directly to
how many people said the videos, the emails, Facebook is one of the reasons I contact you to list my house?
That's right. Yeah, so we want to track those things because we want to look at the return on investment, also called the ROI. And honestly, if I spend $500 a month with viral, can I guarantee I'm going to get one good listing out of it? If I can get one good listing out of that $500 investment and I get a $9,000 commission, I can tell you what the ROI is. So,
and that's something I want to share this too. That's another way of looking at this. So what Matt's saying here is that he spends 10% every month of whatever the gross is on marketing. The other way of saying that is he's looking for a 10-time return on whatever he spends on his marketing. So if you're spending $6,600 a year with viral, which is the $550 month times 12, you should be getting $66,000 in return here at the very top after, say, a year or so.
Right. Yeah. So that's the goal, right? So our goal is to hold our lead generation dollars accountable. So we assign certain lead generation dollars to inside sales, which for us really is outbound, but the title is inside sales. Mm-hmm. We want to look at, we use some tools like viral. We also spend money in there with direct mail to both past clients and to neighborhoods that we farm. We do buy some ads on the portals between Zillow, Trulia. I don't like to spend a lot of money in those areas, but I do like to kind of at least capture my prime zip codes and make sure that I get my fair share or what our unfair share of leads in those areas. So we're always looking for different ways to spend our money like
So that 10%, and this is what's key, that 16,000 is chasing a return. You'll switch out lead providers or whatever is going to give you the most return
every quarter.
But you're
Every
gonna,
quarter we're looking at it.
Yeah, but you're gonna spend that 16 grand every month, all the time. It's not if you spend it, you will spend it. That's a key distinction. You're just trying to find out where the best source is to get the most leads.
Saying, pull these zip codes in Zillow. We're not getting anything out of them, and let's do it
someplace else.
Yeah, all the time.
Okay. So when we say here at Viral, you should spend as much as you can afford on marketing.
Yep.
This is what that means. You have a percentage of your gross set aside.
Yeah.
To spend as much as you can afford every month, so you're not totally dedicated to just prospecting all the time, which can get you burned out, right? Sure. To hopefully build an asset where people contact you, that's that 10%. Is there anything else you want to share about that marketing budget? Like, how do you actually track the specific ROI to each of the items within the 10%? Like, here's this, here's that, here's this thing. How do you do that?
You're not. I think some of it is you're not going to get an exact dollar amount for everything. For example, if my past clients call me and say, we're going to list our home with you, is it because they got 2 viral videos? Is it because they got the direct mail? Is it because they got the birthday card? Is it because they got the home anniversary gift? I don't know. I think it's a combination. So can I say all those, specifically it was because of the birthday card. So, the $1.10 that it took me between postage and the card and sending it out.
That's a great ROI.
Return, right? Yeah. So who knows exactly what all is? But I'm looking for specifics. For example, if I send out a viral video, I want to go back and see how many opens did we get. When I look at how many opens we got, I'm going to see, did we get any appointments off of that? So I'm looking to try to figure it out to get a good ROI. And you have to have really good systems and tools to track your source of business and your leads and have a way to track it.
I would say for anyone who just wants some more clarity on knowing where your leads come from, you just have to make sure you have to ask people, how did you hear about me? What motivated you to contact us? Can you kind of tell me the story of your journey of how you ended up on the phone with me and why we're talking? Right.
That's right.
And what Matt's saying about the opens and clicks. So when we send a video out to your database, some educational video, a percentage of the people we send it to will open the email and click through to watch it.
Right.
Well, we give Matt the names of all those people. So if he sends out a video on the 3 things you must know before you sell your home before the Fed raises rates in December at the next open market committee meeting or something like that, you probably want to know who watched that. That'd be nice to know, right?
Yeah.
So your team then follows up and calls specifically those people because they're probably more likely to maybe make a decision in real estate in your position rather than just kind of randomly slogging through the database.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. So I don't know that we're going to get to an exact dollar for dollar on everything, but when we can track it, we have good reporting, and we have good accountability, and we partner with people that can give us good information and good data. That's really important to us. We want to know that our dollars are being well spent, and that we can, again, we can kind of track it and readjust dollars.
Got it. So let's move on. So we've sent of the 30% after we've net the 70, after paying all the agents and the broker. We have another 30% to spend, which gets us to 40, right? Mm-hmm. So that 30%, we spent 12 of it on salaries. Mm-hmm. We spent 10 of it on marketing, which gives us 8% left. Let's just call that overhead, all right?
Yep.
Where does that go? What's overhead?
Well, it's going to be things like occupancy, which would be kind of rent, desk fees, kind of your cost of having, physical office space. You're going to have things like technology, such as basic websites. It's going to be any type of, if you have an email server, email provider, those types of things. You're going to have a percentage that goes to phones, both mobile phones and office phones. You're going to have a percent that goes to office supplies and consumable goods and those types of things. You're going to have a percent that goes to education and dues. Training, coaching, continuing education, your professional fees, licensing updates. You're going to have some equipment that you're going to need. You might have signs and lock boxes and those types of things. And then probably some auto insurance and those types of things. And so you've got, those are kind of like the kind of catch-all things.
Yeah. So all goes rest into overhead, and the name of the game is to keep that as low as possible.
Especially your fixed. Frank, we came out of a shifting market, and I don't know about all of your guests today, but I can tell you we're feeling the market shift again here. And that's fine. That doesn't scare me, right? We expect market. They're called shifts and they're called cycles for a reason. They go up, they go down. They don't. Sometimes they dive and sometimes they taper off. I mean, that's the business, and that doesn't
low
scare
fixed
any of
cost is
us.
what saves you in a market turn.
That's right. You got to be able to really scale those costs back, and that the bills that you have to pay every month are as minimal as possible, and try to tie everything else to revenue, such as your cost of sale when you can.
Great. This is wonderful. So if you do the math, 100% for gross, less 30% to paying out the cost of sale, less 30% for salaries, marketing, and overhead, gives you a net profit of 40%.
Yep.
So if you did a $10,000 check, let's put this in terms of, I got this $10,000 check. Right. Well, if you're 100% owner in your business, you would be able to pay yourself $4,000 of distributions, and then maybe you're paying yourself a salary too. So you have money from salary, which you pay W-2 income, payroll tax income on, and then you have your distributions. Let's talk about taxes. Of that 40% to the bottom line, how much should be set aside to pay the inevitable tax man?
I don't know. You probably got to set aside 25%.
At least.
Right.
Depends upon your tax bracket.
Excuse me. Right? Yes.
So of that $4,000, set aside probably 25 to 40% of that money to pay the tax man.
Yeah, depending on what portion was already done in payroll, right? So if you had payroll dollars up top that were offsetting with some payroll taxes there, but you're gonna need money in the you got to pay Uncle Sam.
And that's the challenge, that no one ever really knows what their tax bill is at the end of the year, because it's impossible to know. No one knows.
Yeah.
So you're better safer than sorry by putting a little bit more aside, because it always tends to be more than what you expect when the bill comes. Always.
It's a pain. That's what it is.
Oh yeah. We could take the rest of this hangout and just talk about taxes.
Did you watch the debate last night? There's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah, the flat tax, I'll get rid of that. So anyways, I hope everyone sees through this hangout, and you made it through the 40 minutes we went through here, of a general structure of this is called an income statement. You can Google income statement, learn more about that. It's also more commonly known as a profit and loss statement. This is what you set up in your QuickBooks. I love QuickBooks Online. It's like $12 a month. You can go in there and set up what's called your chart of accounts. So we went through the accounts, right? Here's all the accounts, revenue, operating expenses, and what's underneath of those. And when you download all your transactions to the bank, you just put the transactions where they're supposed to go, and then you run your businesses from the percentages. Now, I have a couple other side questions for you. In real estate, your commission checks are like this. Here's a great month. Here's no money. Here's another great month. No money, right? Hopefully you have it consistent, but for most people, it's very up and down. So if you're budgeting 10% for marketing, is that a moving average of the past 3 months, 6 months? How do you think of 10% if you're every single month your GCI is differently? How do you pick a safe 10%?
Yeah. So one of the best things that we want to do is we want to try to take the seasonality out of our real estate sales business. I love people. I was at a real estate event the other day, and I love listening to other people talk support like, we're slowing down towards the holidays. I'm like, good, you go slow down so I can speed up. And people look at seasonality, and one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from Gary Keller was in 2008 after the market crashed, and I apply this in every month that I do business. We were sitting there in November of 2008, and everyone was like, there's no business, blah, 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 blah. And Gary looked at all of us and he said, has there ever been a month with 0 settleds in your MLS? Has there ever been a month with 0 settleds? And we're like, no. And Gary said, okay, then the market doesn't dictate your success. The market only dictates who your client will be. So now, what's the market of the moment? In 08, 09, 10, it was foreclosures and short sales and everything else. So the market dictated our client, not our success. What I want to encourage and challenge, all of your guests is that we can take this seasonality. If you would just focus your business on selling, depending on where they are, right? 2 homes a month, every month, 24 homes a year, you would probably be in a really great situation financially. And then from there, it can go up. But if you would perhaps take a salary out of your business and live off of your salary, and then bonus yourself quarterly on kind of what's left over, or do this, pay yourself. Let's say you open the XYZ sales team business. Why don't you put the money into the business and pay yourself for doing the job? So when you're the listing agent, take the listing agent commission. When you're the buyer's agent, take the buyer agent commission, and leave all the rest of the money in the business, right? I mean, that would give you you'd know then what you had. See, most real estate agents, Frank, make this big mistake. They are they choose to be self-employed instead of business owners, meaning they just work for themselves. Instead of getting a paycheck from Starbucks down the street, they're just traded dollars. They didn't really build a business. All they're doing is running from one commission check to the next. And I want to get people to a place where they just look ahead and predict and say, my goal is going to be 36 deals this year, but I'm going to live and spend as if I'm going to do 24. And you live off of that flat amount, and that's what you do. And you get to the end of the quarter, and you can bonus yourself. You can leave money in. You can take it out. But take the seasonality and your life cycles out of there and flatten it out. Trust me, there isn't one person that's listening today that can't sell 2 or 3 homes a month every month for the rest of their career if they want to.
Yeah. Which leads me to my second question: is your salary is you get your so you could actually be playing 3 roles in the business. You could be taking a salary as the manager. You can also be taking a salary as, let's say, the ISA. You can also be taking a salary as listing agent, and then you also bonus yourself on listing agent commission. You're just following the own comp structure of your own business that you set up, right?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
So that's the money where you get paid for what you do.
That's right.
So you get paid for what you do with that money, whereas the money to the bottom line, you get paid for what you own.
That's right.
And generally, you don't want to take that profit out until you have a certain amount of core capital set up to be able to weather bad months.
That's right.
Core capital requirements. So what would you recommend as the core capital requirement? I'm sure they have them for the market centers. By the way, I don't think I said this, but Matthew also is opening a market center in London. And
we're in London. Yeah.
Yeah, he's opening up a whole new Keller Williams office in London so his team is running. He's opening one in London. He's flying back and forth to open office in London and all over the country. He has another office in Delaware. So talk about someone who's very leveraged and knows his numbers. Right? How much core capital do you need? How much money do you need in savings to hit your expenses every single month? Before you start taking out your distributions.
I would try to keep a minimum of 4 months in reserve, right? I don't think any of us are ever going to go 2 or 3 months in a row without a closing. So if you had 4 months in reserves, better would be 6. But if you had 4 months in reserves and you could weather the storm, you would be in really good situation. And I think I started talking about this earlier and maybe didn't finish, but our market's shifting a little bit, and I'm not afraid of it. Even if it just flattens, or if it just goes down 2 or 3%, it's not a big deal. But usually, what happens when those things happen is it stalls for a little bit until buyers and sellers re-understand what the prices should be. And so when it stalls, it means we could slow down for 60 or 90 days until people start getting their head around it, right? When we looked at the end of 08, beginning of 09, nobody was buying or selling because they were waiting to see, well, is this the bottom? Could it go down further? I don't want to buy a house of today if it's going to be worth less than 90 days. So it stalls for a little bit until everyone kind of gets their head around where's it going. If you can live on a budget model, if you can save 4 to 6 months worth of operating expenses, and you can stay on your focus of your lead generation and bring your deals in, look for the market of the moment, whether, who can buy today, right? As the market tanked and we went to the first-time home buyer tax credit, the market of the moment was first-time home buyers. So you got to go find the market of the moment, and then you just go back to work. But that doesn't mean you're not going to have a bump for 60 or 90 days while things figure themselves out, flatten out, and then you get somebody to take a leap with you and buy or sell again. So you got to be able to weather those storms. The other thing that we didn't really talk about is the tax advantages of putting yourself on salary, right? So when you get paid for what you do, which is the job of being for running the sales team, it's the job of being the listing agent or the buyer's agent. If you take that through payroll tax as the owner and pay your taxes there, then you can take the profit distributions for owning the business out at the end of the year, or course, whenever you take it, but at a lower tax rate, because you're not going to pay income tax on that. You're going to pay income tax, and you're not paying payroll taxes on it. So you're not having to pay the FICA and the Social Security, and the Medicare taxes that go with that. So you're paying ordinary income as if you own stock in Apple and you got a distribution for that, and you pay that at your regular tax rate, as opposed to paying it at the full rate that you pay for doing your job. So if you can pay yourself for doing your job and take the profits out as a distribution, you're going to probably save between 15 and 18% on taxes.
Absolutely. Very good. All right. I hope this was helpful for everybody. We got a good solid dose of 45 minutes of accounting. And I want you to see how, if you can run your business by the numbers and someone says, well, can I afford viral marketing? Watch this hangout. This is the only hangout. This is what's going to show it to you. And you really have to make that decision. Depends how much capital do you have, what deals you have in the pipeline. There's so many, like even Matt said, we can't make that decision for you, but we give you some tools to understand where you should be in some numbers to see if you're somewhere in the range of what a good, healthy business should be. So let's take the last 15 minutes, Matt, and let's transition gears. And let's talk about viral marketing. Let's talk specifically about 3 things that you're doing because I want our clients to get great results. They have to build a database and get email addresses, and someone like you has to leverage that through your team, right?
Yeah.
They have to shoot 2 videos a month that people actually want to watch.
Yep.
That are helpful.
Yeah.
And then they need to follow up with the people that are watching those videos for referrals and feedback. And that's all covered, by the way, in the database reset. It's the core marketing plan we teach here at Viral Marketing. I'll say one more time. You can go to getviral.com, VYRAL, download that. It's right on the homepage. Or if you want, you can also go to thedatabasereset.com.
Great.
All right. So let's talk about how you leverage email building through your team. How are you collecting emails and building your database?
So everywhere we go, we're trying to collect everyone's email address. Even if somebody calls in and leaves a message and talks to somebody on our admin team, we're always asking for their email address. So if they call in and say, hey, I want to leave a message for Matt, somebody is like, fantastic, Matt, I'll look forward to calling you back. Can I update his contact information for you? Can I get your most accurate email address? We're getting it that way. We're certainly getting it from everyone that registers on our websites for any type of information, whether it's through IDX or home value offers or those types of things. Past clients, strategies of getting your current clients to include you in their email marketing campaigns that they send out to their friends to show their houses on the market and collecting those databases. So, email marketing is key. And then the other side of it, like you said, is the quality of the content is king, because I get up in the morning and I've already got 85 emails in my inbox because I've gotten everything from J. Crew to Wells Fargo Bank. Everyone's sending me something like that, and I literally open my email in the morning and I'm like delete, 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 all the way down there. So how do we get a really good marketing message out there? One is it's timing. How often can you do it without getting people spamming you or blocking you? And then the quality of the content. They've got it. I'll tell you this. I always open up certain vendor emails because I know there's going to be a coupon in there that I'm going to want to use or a new product that I want to see. So if I get 40 overnight, there's 2 that I'm reading, and it's the ones that I think always have something in there for me, and it's not just about them. So
it's worth paying to receive. It's really something educational, or it's something useful, right?
Yes. Yep.
It's not salesy. You're not opening the one say hire me, hire me, hire me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you come up with the topics for your database that you know are going to be the most useful for your people?
How do I get our topics?
Yeah. How do you come up with topics? How do you come up with 2 topics a month that you actually want to record into a webcam and send out that actually you find that your database will find of value?
Right. So I leverage viral. So I get them from my coach, Dan. I get stuck and I email Dan and say, hey, Dan, I got to do videos and I don't know what to say. So I will be on. I'm not just saying because you're there, and that's why we're clients, is because we appreciate the service. But we get good support from Viral, and they say, and guys, we didn't even talk about this. So when I'm telling this truthfully, the reason I go with Viral, I could make my own videos. The video part's easy, but getting the topics right, getting the right process. So we leverage Viral for that. Also, we do roundtable on our team, and we'll say what's going on, what are buyers asking now, what are sellers asking, what were the objections you had last month. So I generally find from buyers, if they have one objection, the next 5 buyers have the same objection. It's something that's going on. It's something that they read. There's a little something going on out there. So if we can address those globally instead of one-offs, I think we're really better off. But we leverage it.
And that's wonderful. So obviously we can give you some topics that we think are good that are working for other clients, but also at the roundtable of finding out what are the questions people are asking now, because they're probably a little bit different with the market shifting than maybe before when it's a very hot market. And you could take that one question and answer it and get it up on your website out to everybody. And it's very timely, relevant information. I love the listening for questions your ideal customers are asking. What's the word on the street? and then answering that in a video, and like basically your video blog is a giant FAQs blog.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Now, what about the calling? What about the prioritizing follow-up with the open and click report? So your guys doing that?
Absolutely. And I'm lucky enough, or not lucky is not right, I'm strategic enough to choose to leverage that to my inside sales folks. So as soon as we're getting opens and clicks, and we know we're jumping on those calls right away and reaching out to people.
Good, because they're interested in real estate more than someone who's probably not reading it, right? And you're probably wondering
raise their hand, right?
Yeah, and you're probably wondering what that script is. Like if you're going to have someone on your behalf call, like your past clients in Sphere and your leads, what do they say? And I write the script specifically in that database reset, that free video marketing plan, the website, but it goes something like this. Hey, this is Sam. I'm calling because Matt Fetick, who I believe is your realtor, asked me to give you a quick call. I see you subscribe to some of the helpful videos he sends out about real estate, what's going on here in the Pennsylvania suburbs. Do you have any feedback on the videos and any questions that I could pass along to Matt that he could answer in upcoming videos?
Yeah.
And that starts the conversation, and just kind of goes from there. But it's a good opener.
Yeah, it's really easy. It's just knowing what to say. It's being genuine, and I say half the success with calling people on the phone truly comes from asking good questions. Is there anything I can do to help you today? Would you have questions about what you read? And whenever you get stuck and you're not sure what to say, stop saying things and ask a question.
Mm-hmm. Great. So that's the core of the viral marketing plan. Asking for email addresses every day, holding that accountable. And if you're very leveraged like Matt, you have to get the emails through other people. 2 educational videos a month, ideally answering questions that people ask. That way there's a good message to market match and there's demand for the content versus you creating something that you think is great and trying to find somebody that wants to watch it, right? And then finally, you want to follow up with the people that are watching the videos, which is kind of like the new lead. It's online behavior tracking. That's why Facebook and Google make $1 gazillion, because they're tracking your behavior online and showing you relevant offers, which is exactly what you're doing through your emails. You're tracking who's consuming the stuff, and you're calling them, prioritizing your offer and your follow-up.
Yeah.
But let's move on to this. We talked before the call here today, Matt, that you were also interested in some advertising. And that's a premium service that we have here at Viral Marketing, that we actually run YouTube and Facebook video ads for you. So yeah, you want to work your database and grow that because there's no marginal cost really. I mean, how many Facebook friends you have, how many email addresses you have, it's not going to cost you that much more to reach those people, but you have to go get the permission. That takes a lot of work. But what if you don't have the permission? Or what if those people aren't opening their emails? What if you want to reach more people? Well, you can pay Facebook and YouTube to place those to the right audience. So why don't you tell me what you were interested in with advertising? Let's have a little quick conversation advertising, and we'll wrap things up. Why are you interested in Facebook and YouTube ads?
Well, I think the thing that I like most about them is they're accountable, right? So I can look and say, I spent $500 on Google pay-per-click. How many people did it reach, and how many people clicked, and then how many people registered? And to me, that's really important, because I'll say that, like, if I have 1,000-person reach, and out of those 1,000 people, 5 people click, I've got a bad message.
Correct.
Right, and so now I know it's a message issue, right? So so then I got to fix the message, right? If I get a lot of views and a lot of clicks and no registration, then my value proposition on the registration page wasn't strong enough to get them to give me their contact information, right? If I get all of those things and people register and we don't get a listing out of it, then it's my scripting of my team members and their talent. So I like that it's a very accountable way. If you look at Facebook and Google pay-per-click, that I can look at all that and say, what's the problem? Is it my message? Is it my landing page or my value proposition? Or is it when we get them on the phone, we don't know what to do with them? And so that's what I like about that. Number 2, I think that if you look at LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, we can do that really effectively and get great messages out there. I really believe that. And that's where we all are. And the other thing is we're all on mobile, and and it's just it's predictive and it's understandable. And I travel all over the world. I'm going to be in Austin, Texas next week. I'm going to be in London the following week. I open up my phone and I expect to be able to find the best breakfast place to go. I expect to be able to find homes. I expect to be able to find a car through Uber. It's all right here. And I would expect that if I wanted to buy an investment property, in Texas and I didn't know an agent, then I'm going to find that information right here. So if it's not right here, I'm not looking at it. Right. And so that's why I want to spend the money there.
Yeah. The question I always ask is let me ask you this, Matt. How many hours a day do you spend in front of a screen? Phone,
it's
TV?
ridiculous.
I think the whole audience cringed.
I know. And can you imagine, can you think back, any kid born today will never, I have a niece that is 8 months old. I swear to you, Frank, she can get on the phone and go like this. We have kids that they just know how to, she's 8 months old.
Yeah.
And she sees the phone and she likes to watch videos. She likes to watch
my 10-month-old swiping the book.
Yeah, they do. They swipe, they touch, they do. They're on there swiping. Like their whole world will be a piece of Gorilla Glass that they just go like this for the rest of their lives.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, when the Oculus Rift comes out, I'm shipping you one, and we're going to go virtual reality, and that's we're just going to live in that together, right? But here's the deal. Let me wrap this up. So I'm working with Matt, and we're going to do some advertising. We have some clients doing that. Let me just fill you in. If you were to do ads, let me give you some tips. The first audience that you want to run ads to are custom audiences, which is a fancy word for your email list. You could actually take all your past clients, sphere, lead emails, all those emails you have, and upload them to Facebook. Facebook will then match that email to user accounts. And you can actually run ads to the people that are only in your email list. How cool is that? So if you're trying to convert buyer leads, if you're trying to stay in touch with past clients, you can segment that. And you can run super niche ads just to those people. It can only cost a couple dollars a day, if that. Google, because Facebook was killing them because Facebook could do that, just 2 weeks ago, allowed you to upload customer lists to Google. So now you can run banner ads and you can run videos. If you upload a list of emails to AdWords, which is YouTube banner ads, to AdWords, you know how we're all logged into Gmail all day long? We're all logged into our Gmail. Well, your browser knows and they can show the ads if you're logged into your Gmail account while you're surfing online. How cool is that? So you can get super specific ads to emails to specific people on AdWords and Facebook. So I would start there because those are existing relationships, right? Then the second audience I would go after if you're going to spend money on advertising would be remarketing. This is where you put a piece of code on the homepage of one site, another site, all your websites, all right? And when someone visits that site, meaning they showed interest, they showed intent in whatever it is that you do, a little piece of code is installed in their computer. It's called a cookie, all right? Well, what happens now when they go around everywhere online, they start seeing your videos on YouTube. They start seeing your banner ads here. They start seeing some ads on Facebook. And it starts reminding them of you, and they get more engaged, and hopefully it brings them back to your website, educates them, and creates that whole top-of-mind awareness effect, all right? So you have custom audience of emails. You have remarketing on the website. Then finally, the third best audience to go after, especially in real estate, you can go into Facebook and you can go into YouTube. Facebook more than YouTube. And you could say, I want to target all of the homeowners within a 1 mile radius of this address. All of the homeowners in a 1 mile radius or a 2 mile radius that maybe have visited my website, that maybe are in my custom audience list, that maybe YouTube or Facebook thinks are likely to move. And you could target these specific little farms to stay in touch with like key areas that you want to be in front of to get listings. For example, I mean, we're able to target for $2 a day. $2 a day puts us on the news feed of every single homeowner in Hawaii that has a home over $2 million, which is incredible. So some of these things you can do with online advertising, you're really seeing this take off a little bit more, and that's something that we're happy to help you with here at Viral Marketing if you're interested in that. But here's the deal. It costs money. So if you want to start with your existing database, work that, build that. That's the foundation of business. You got to make your calls. You got to do all these things we talked about first. But then you're going to have some marketing budget freed up from that 10%. That's where you can spend some of that money on the online advertising, which is what you're going to be reallocating with us here shortly, right, Matt?
Yes.
Cool. So that's kind of my little speech. I know people really like advertising stuff, so I thought I'd share some of that. Hopefully you found that helpful, Matt. Did you enjoy that?
Absolutely. I'm excited about it. I'm taking notes. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm jotting stuff down as we're talking.
Cool. All right, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for attending this hangout. Hopefully you learned something about about accounting. If you want to learn more about accounting, a couple authors I really recommend. Keith Cunningham wrote a book on it's like a super successful business. Keith Cunningham is actually the rich dad in Rich Dad Poor Dad. So when Robert Kiyosaki talks about rich dad, it's Keith Cunningham. I would check out his book on accounting. There's also a great book called Simple Numbers and Big Profits by Greg Crabtree. Wonderful book that really help you understand your numbers a little bit more. Those are two really books that you can kind of go forward and learn more about that. But with that, I want to say thank you for attending. I'm Frank Closets of Viral Marketing, and we're here to help you get more sales from your database with education-based video marketing. If you're interested, look forward to talking to you, and see you next time.
Thanks for having me.